Welcome, everyone. Today, we will be learning about the story behind the journey and learning about leading up to the launch of PANGAIA's resale program, Reware. So, welcome. We will first talk about how Reware has leveraged Archive and Eon's technology to be the first peer-to-peer resale platform in the market to feature instant resale, which basically enables customers to resell a product in just a few clicks by leveraging data from its digital ID. We will also discuss learnings and challenges that brands face as they work to launch a resale program, change consumer behavior, and encourage circular versus linear consumption. A few logistics. The webinar, as you might know, will take about 30 minutes, and we will leave time for Q&A at the end, which might end up being that we go a little bit over 30 minutes, but we really want to make sure that we kind of include you in the conversation at the end. So please share any questions that you might have. The way you drop your questions is that you have to do it through the chat, so throughout the webinar, and we will try to get to as many of you as we can. Also, just to let you know, we are recording this session and we'll be happy to send it out to everyone in a few days. So in case you don't know who I am, I'm Michinetta Tinapel. I am the founder of Shape Innovate, which is a knowledge-sharing platform that basically bridges policy and fashion. I'm also the creator of fashioner.com, which is a digital platform that translates innovation in a fashion voice. I work as a fashion tech consultant, which has led to me authoring a few in-depth analysis for LVMH Atelier. I'm a regular keynote speaker at events such as Premier Vision, Munich Fabric Start, and this year I was quite excited to be asked to be an innovation stage host at the Global Fashion Summit in Copenhagen. Besides writing for my own platform, Fashion Nerd, I'm also a senior contributor at the Interline, and I've also shared some insights with Vogue Business. I'm an active climate action and collaborating with UNFCCC and Climate Kick. And this kind of collaboration has led to me participating in COP27 last year. And currently, I'm preparing for COP28 this year. I also chair the Culture and Creative Industries Task Force for the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub. That's a mouthful, I know. And lastly, I'm also an associate lecturer at London College of Fashion, UAL. So now I'm going to pass it over to the panelists to kind of let them introduce themselves and share a little bit about what it is that they do and what their company does. So passing it on to you. Rory, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Michinetta. A tough ask to follow you, but I'll give it a go. I'm Rory Hugill, the Circularity and Traceability Manager at PANGAIA. Within my role, I'm responsible for all of the kind of strategy setting, the governance and the programmatic work within both the fields of circularity and traceability. So today's conversation is incredibly pertinent, given it really focuses on the nexus of those two things between circularity as it pertains to a circular business model and traceability, leveraging Eon's fantastic technology. PANGAIA, for those that aren't aware, is a material science company and a lifestyle brand that is about 3 to 4 years old, with the inception of really trying to scale and commercialize game-changing innovations that can help us and the industry at large meet our climate goals. I'll hand over to Jackie.
Awesome. Thanks, Roy. I know, Michinetta, so impressive. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie. Thanks so much for joining. I'm Archive's Partnerships Director. I help brands ideate and launch their resale programs, and I was lucky enough to work closely with Rory to bring PANGAIA's resale program, Reware, to life. So what does Archive do? Archive is a tech platform for branded resale. We essentially white label the entire resale experience for brands, from technical development and design to building integrations with the brand's existing systems, powering all the logistics, modeling out supply and demand, creating detailed marketing strategies. We do it all. We really aim to make launching a resale program turnkey for our partners by taking on all the heavy lifting. Today, we work with over 40 brands globally and are continuing to launch with new innovative brands every month. I'll pass it off to Elyse.
Yeah, thanks. It's really exciting to be here together after the work we've done and get to speak about it. So I'm Elyse. I oversee accounts and product strategy for Eon. And to introduce Eon, we are a leader in digital ID technology. So we connect the physical product to the digital. And we do this through a unique item level digital ID or digital product passport. And what this does is enable brands and retailers to trace their product end to end. You capture more value of each item through its life cycle, and you continuously engage with consumers beyond that first purchase. And you can scale new business models like resale, which we are going to talk about today. So you can think about Aeon as like a CRM for your products. And in my role, my team and I work with our brand partners, PANGAIA being one. We work with global brands and retailers like Coach, Chloe, Target, and really help implement and scale digital ID across their portfolio of products, which enables them to prepare for upcoming legislation, meet their business goals like resale, and really increase the value of your products. Thank you. Back to you, Muchinetta.
Thank you so much, Rory, Jackie, and Elyse. I'm sure that everyone was very impressed by what it is that you shared with us. We've mentioned that phrase instant resale a few times, and we thought it'd be a really great place to start by showing you all a demo before we dive into our panel conversation. So I'm going to pass it off to Elyse to talk through how instant resale works in practice.
Amazing, thank you. So to tee us up, I'm sure many of you can relate, but resale can be a time-consuming process for consumers. As you know, you can think about, you have to type in product information, you have to take those marketing-worthy photos for your product, all of which can take time. And so we wanted to make it easy to resell, as easy as it is to buy today. So with instant resale, this creates a seamless process for customers, for brands, and for resellers. So the journey starts when you engage with the digital ID that's on the physical product. In this case, it's a QR code. And once you scan, you land on this experience. When the consumer is ready, they can click instant resale, and it's pre-populated with the information. Then the customer is prompted to answer a few questions about condition, upload a few photos to validate that condition, and then proposed a price listing, which they can accept, and then move that into resale. So talking about that process took about 30 seconds, but it's quite instant and seamless for the customer. So this is powered by the digital ID, which has that pre-populated information, which comes through when Archive hits Aeon API. And so ultimately, your customers now have one-click resale at their fingertips with their phone and their product. And so now I'm going to pass it to Jackie to show Reware.
Awesome. Thanks, Elyse. Great. So when you land on Reware, this is the website that Archive has built. And you see this beautiful, engaging video. This is just one of the assets that PANGAIA had us incorporate into the design. You scroll to the bottom, you see those two big calls to action. Here, you're on the shop page. When you click on the shop page, you can click on a product. This is the product detail page. You see all the details and sizes. This is where you can add to cart. When you go back to the home page, a customer can then choose to sell an item. They're prompted then to scan their item, which is their digital ID, or they can list it by order number, product name, or description. One other thing I wanted to call out too, which you saw in the last video, is that when a customer is listing an item, Archive recommends a listing price. That price is based on the number of data inputs, such as MSRP, item condition, current inventory mix, et cetera. And this really takes all of the guesswork off of the seller. They don't have to think about pricing and removes all the friction to list their item. So that's the customer experience, and everything in this case was built specifically for PANGAIA. And now I'm excited to dive into the panel.
Okay, let's get started. Rory, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey towards bringing Reware to life. Why did PANGAIA choose to launch a resale program, and what challenges did you face along the way?
Sure, thanks. I'll answer the second of those first. So why did we choose to launch a resale program? So as I mentioned, PANGAIA is a relatively young brand, around 4 years old. And up until this point, we've really been focusing more on what we call upstream circularity. So the materials that we're using, the processes that we're using to bring these products to life, really thinking about circularity in a multifaceted way. So that upstream as well as downstream. This has been exemplified by lots of the collections that we've made. We've used recycled material, we've used recycled dyes even, and continue to think about innovative ways to incorporate recycled materials. But, you know, through speaking with our customers and also kind of realizing that some of the products that we've sold over the years will be coming to the natural end of the use phase for their first life, we knew that resale was a very interesting area for us to move into. There's a bunch of reasons, you know, some kind of commercially driven, some from a kind of improving the digital experience for our customers, as Elyse and Jackie just showed, but also from an impact perspective. You know, there's lots of statistics to demonstrate that by reusing items for X amount of times can reduce the impact by, you know, 80 to 100%, depending on where you're looking at your stats. So it was really something that we were interested in looking into more. So, and then once we've kind of landed that a resale platform would be an interesting foray into circular business models, it then came to landscaping this incredibly vast landscape of providers that exist. Through speaking to almost all of them that exist, we landed on Archive being the selected platform provider for us. That is just because of pure alignment in terms of the ambition, the vision for where we see resale and circularity going as a solution provider and as a brand. So, you know, we'd landed on Archive and then a peer-to-peer resale platform kind of also works for us, as it's aligned with a lot of the ways that our customers are engaging with resale at the moment. So if we think about those third-party platforms that exist, the Depop, the Vinted, the eBays, we saw bring this in-house to have a branded experience as a way to really kind of meet them halfway. So it's a process and a system that they know how to use, but also create a much more elevated experience to really enhance that overall experience for the customers and the brand as well. So that's kind of how we landed on Reware. And with regards to the challenges, I think there were a few. In all honesty, like, I feel very lucky to work for a brand like PANGAIA that has kind of sustainability and circularity embedded quite close to the ethos of the brand. So there's a kind of presumed knowledge and understanding and awareness of the importance of these kind of things. So, you know, there was a bit of obviously trying to get people on side, but I think not too significant in the scheme of things. There were some technological difficulties, given that, you know, we're creating an integration for the first time between 3 different solution brands and solution providers like that. So nothing that can be overcome by the great teams at Aeon and Archive. So some challenges bringing it to life, but really relatively seamless, and I feel very lucky for that.
Quite like that, because I always feel like it's great for you to actually talk about challenges and how you've overcome them. So that's amazing. But moving on to Jackie, if that's all right. When it comes to Archive, can you tell us a little bit about the company has approached that partnership with PANGAIA? Because Rory mentioned some of the challenges that he faced. What has been the biggest hurdles you've been hearing about from other brands and who are trying to kind of launch their own resale program? And how are you addressing them?
Yeah, sure. I'll start with the first question about how we approach the partnership with PANGAIA. Rory and I always laugh because it probably took us about 1.5 years to really get settled on just a strategy and then launching and whatnot. So there's a lot of history. Rory and I became good friends through the process of it. And so with PANGAIA, like many brands we work with, we just didn't want to think about the launch of Reware, but also how the program matured over time. How do we make this a living, breathing program that really evolves? So we spent a lot of time not only thinking about what resale model to launch with, what market to launch in, but also strategized a phased approach that allowed for program expansion in the long run. We also spent time thinking about how we could build a resale program that felt really unique to the PANGAIA customer. And I would say this is really a critical element of all the programs we work on with our brand partners. But as Rory mentioned, given that sustainability is core to PANGAIA's mission, he really wanted to do something that was first to market and innovative and would really push the brand's circularity efforts forward. That's when we came up with the idea to incorporate Aeon digital IDs, leveraging the resource that was already built into the clothing, a tool that had the potential to make it even easier for customers to keep items in circulation. So this integration was really a no-brainer at the end of the day. So in terms of your second question around challenges that brands are facing, brands definitely get the why of resale, I would say. They understand the value proposition of building loyalty, driving revenue, acquiring customers, supporting their sustainability goals. But many are just completely lost as to how they should actually enter the market, what model they should launch with, what the optimal experience is for their customers, et cetera. And most importantly, they also want this to be a viable business endeavor and not something that brings them in the negative. So we're really hyper-focused at Archive on not only incredible resale experiences for consumers, but also driving profitable outcomes for brands and really trying to figure that out.
So how are you addressing their hows? Is it, I mean, how are you making them feel confident to get to step into the how?
Yeah, so I would say with the how, and especially with the viable business endeavor, it's kind of nerdy, but it goes a lot into modeling, and really supply and demand modeling. What's the demand potential, and then what's the supply needed to hit that demand potential? Working really closely with PANGAIA and really all our partners on marketing strategies. How often do you need to be talking to your customer via email, via social post? How can we incorporate paid? Those sorts of things. So that's really the how.
I think that's very exciting. But I'm going to move on to you, Elyse. Just a moment ago, we saw how Aeon's technology allows customers to instantly resell their PANGAIA clothing. So could you tell us a little bit about digital IDs and how they help streamline the resale process, please?
Yeah, great. I think it will be helpful to maybe take a step back and explain what a digital ID is. So a digital ID is the digital twin of the physical product, which stores the comprehensive information about the item. So where it was made, who made it, the material, components, photos, certifications, any other assets as well. So it holds all of that within the twin. And then it also captures and records events as the item moves across its life cycle. So events starting upstream, which can be in the supply chain, like, for example, manufactured, shipped, and then sold, and then beyond. So including repaired, resold, recycled. So the value of the digital ID is it enables brands to have that end-to-end view of the product. So where PANGAIA has been IDing their product from day one, they were bringing forward that upstream impact, all of that through to the experience. And then they can layer over time services to their consumers, because the digital ID allows you to carry that information and then efficiently share permissioned product data to stakeholders across the value chain. One of those stakeholders being resale, right? So resale as a business is based upon unique item level inventory. Every single product has to be identified, cataloged, authenticated, and processed. And so digital ID removes these steps, enabling Archive, the resale process to instantly identify, to authenticate, to process incoming items, which is critical for scale. And then you have the value to the customer, right? So you've taken away that friction of the experience for reselling, which you saw in the demo. And the digital IDs are connected to the physical product via a data carrier. So that can be a QR code. It can be an NFC chip, which is the same technology that you use in your credit card. And then customers can scan their products, access information, impact, that PANGAIA has been wanting to share, and engage services that brands offer over time. So when they elect ready to update and bring resale to the market, the digital ID can then provide that continuity and that frictionless experience. So for the brands, you have happy customers, and you're also receiving now the information back on the digital ID as it moves through the process, as you learn more about beyond that first purchase, which was not possible before.
Thank you so much for explaining it to us. I think there were probably people in the audience that really needed to hear what exactly it was. So thank you for that. Moving to you, Rory, how do you see Reware continuing to evolve? I mean, what's your long-term goals for that particular program?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's important to note that, we see Reware as the first brick of the house that we're building. We recognize that, the form that Reware is in now is not necessarily the form that it will be in a year's time, and definitely not beyond that. We're always thinking of ways that we can innovate and iterate over time. The capabilities and functionalities that exist now are vastly different even from a year ago today. If we think about this partnership as a great example of that. So we really take that iterative approach. Very practically, we're thinking about how we can increase the optionality for our customers to make the resale experience as seamless as possible. So the digital ID integration was a very obvious and really first to market opportunity, but thinking about other forms of resale, so whether that's through a take back scheme or other forms of resale that exist. And I think it's another kind of very practical note, but also the way that we're communicating with our customers. This is a new experience for us to communicate with customers about a new business model rather than a new product that we're launching. So we're really learning on how's the best way to communicate to increase, to kind of maximize the engagement possible, and really get excitement through that as well. So, as well as trying to stimulate and grow the resale platform, as I mentioned, we think a lot about upstream circularity, so the integration of recycled materials, regenerated materials, bio-based materials, renewable materials, etc. And we think that Reware also has a fantastic opportunity to start to kind of begin to close that loop. So, we know that a number of our products that our customers use wouldn't be suitable for resale for a variety of reasons. And so through leveraging the technology that Aeon and Archive and others have, we're able to start to think about how we can connect all those dots and start to channel some of those non-rewireable goods to those recycling partners and really kind of begin to create that flow of goods and close the loop. I think, that speaks to our long-term goal, which is ultimately just to take responsibility for all the products that we're putting on the market and ensure that they're living their maximum usable life. And then also we're taking responsibility for what happens thereafter, whether that be resale, whether that be recycling, and beyond. So big ambitions, but taking it step by step.
I love big ambitions. So I think it's like you kind of are showing the way, with kind of letting people know this is how we can do it. So I kind of like the fact that you've thought about it long term. Moving to you, Jackie, I'm curious to hear what's next for branded resale. How are you seeing brands growing and scaling their programs?
Big question. I'll answer the second question first, and then I'll talk about what's next. So how are you seeing brands grow and scale their programs? Well, we're at the point where many of our brand partners have seen the initial success of their programs. Their programs have been launched for a few years now, and they're eager to grow and expand. From day one, it was essential that we build a product that was scalable for global brands, but also had flexibility and customization potential so that brands could deliver an experience that is exciting and special and authentic. What this means is that we can help a brand launch with any resale model, in-store or online, be it peer-to-peer, take back, brand inventory, etc. And then once we have initial learnings, or when the brand is ready to grow the program, we can scale it over time and just add new resale models and expand to new markets. And that's something that we're actively working with PANGAIA on. So stay tuned for some additions to their program. Okay, so the first question of what's next for resale. In terms of what's next, we're really excited about the in-store potential for secondhand shopping. We have had a lot of our partners start selling a curated selection of pre-loved items in store using Archive software. And for the people on the webinar, I don't know if you've been seeing that more and more as you're going in store and seeing sections of secondhand, but I think that's just so exciting. And I know I'm excited to see that as I'm bopping around High Street or wherever it is. So there's much more we are working on within physical stores. Definitely stay tuned for that. We're also continuing to innovate with the online customer experience. Today, we're launching around 3 to 5 new features every month. Our product roadmap is partly determined by how we see the industry evolving, but a lot of it is actually guided by our brand partners and their customers. We're continuing to evolve our offering based on feedback from our brands like PANGAIA, customer research, and customer brainstorm sessions.
I love the idea of pre-loved clothes being in store. I think it gives accessibility and also encourages consumers to actually want to buy it, makes it easy for them. I have one final question for you, Elyse, if that's all right. What are the considerations for brands when exploring digital IDs, and what other use cases are you finding with digital IDs?
Great. I too will answer the second first. So I think, what are the use cases that brands can consider? I think as it's becoming very apparent, digital ID is really cross-disciplinary. So there are a lot of benefits and business cases across the enterprise. But a central use case that we're seeing right now is compliance with policy. Digital ID, digital product passports are becoming mandatory for products sold in the EU under upcoming legislation. So the legislation requires the ability to share this richer product information with downstream value partners including resellers, to promote circularity and increase the value and lifetime of these products. The data exchange and interoperability is key to that legislation, and it's very quickly approaching. So that's really top of mind for a lot of the brands that we work with. Another use case is the ongoing customer engagement. I mean, as we've talked about a lot here, this digital ID and the product now offers a new channel for commerce. So the marketing teams absolutely see this value pretty immediately, right? So you have the ability to share your story, the product story, drive reorders, cross-selling, loyalty programs, and then deliver post-sale services, which is really important as brands are shaping sort of what their circular and sustainable missions are. So yeah, I mean, those are just two of the use cases. There's plenty more. It touches on brand protection, different traceability, business initiatives. There's quite a few. But I would say now to go into what brands should consider getting started. I think a lot of the questions that we get are, how do I get started? Who should own this? How long does it take? And I think, just from the getting started perspective, our recommendation is wherever you are today, we meet you. The technology is flexible and it's advisable to get started now, because the technology also allows you to do assessments over what your data strategy is. Where do you need to drill in for some of this upcoming legislation? No brand is starting with everything figured out. This is super important to communicate, because you need to get started, create the second piece of advice or best practice we have is really a multi-stakeholder task force, because it threads across the organization. It's highly cross-functional, touches a lot of departments. So, we work with the brand to manage across each of these stakeholders. How do you adopt this into your operations and then scale? And what benefits and value are you receiving back within your departments that, are those exciting quick wins that you can build upon over time? So, I mean, I will leave you with, you can start wherever you are. And it's important to note, you don't have to turn on all features and functionality from day one. Same with what PANGAIA has been doing. By creating the digital ID, you're giving your product like a mini operating system, right? And then over time, you can update and implement new services. You can provide additional, information, loyalty program, etc. We like to call it like you have a Tesla. You can update it when you're ready and turn on these different services. So hopefully that's helpful. But we always like to talk to a brand, see where they are, and help them sort of understand the steps to move forward quickly.
Thank you, Elyse. It sounds to me like you're offering a really good kind of personalized service. Time has gone by so quickly, so I know we have a few questions. I've seen them, so we got time only for one or two at the moment. So I'm going to start with the first question, and it's a question for Archive. So how does recycling come into play, and how do you handle reverse logistics?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of recycling, we do integrate with recycling partners. Some of our brands want to offer their customers both a resell or a recycling option. An example of this is actually ALC. So I recommend checking out their site after the webinar. They're a brand that offers both resale and recycling together as part of the experience that we built just from the get-go. We also have our own tech that is used in warehouses. And either with our network of experience warehouses or within a brand's own warehouse. And based on an item condition and the price it will take to repair, our tech will then route those items to be either repaired or recycled. So it's this kind of smart logic that we have. It's kind of our warehouse WMS, so to speak. So two different options for recycling, but we definitely love when brands want to offer that. And again, we're really focused on trying to keep items in use as long as possible, but we know that some items have reached, that end of life, so to speak, and we want to find the next best use pathing for them. So a few different options. For reverse logistics, a lot of brands are chasing to route their returns directly to our 3PL partners so that we can prepare them for resale. This is a question that we get quite a lot. Returns are definitely a big issue for brands today, and resale is a great way to drive revenue for brands while ensuring that those items remain out of landfills. Definitely can address both of those.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Rory, there's a question from you for one of the listeners, and they ask you, what would success look like for PANGAIA's resale platform?
A big question. I mean, I would come back to that point around, you know, the reason that's a difficult question to answer is, as I mentioned, it's a completely new space for us. So we can't use any of those traditional metrics for measuring success that you normally do in a fashion brand when embarking on these endeavors. So I think there's a few different ways of looking at what success would look like. You know, from an impact perspective, where I sit, it's obviously if we could take a certain percentage of the products that that are sold and ensure that they're coming back through our system, through the take back scheme, through the resale scheme, and through the recycling ultimately. But you know, again, as I said, the benefits of resale are really multifaceted. So I'm sure if you asked my counterpart in the digital team or even in the marketing and commercial team, they would have their own metrics in which we're really continually measuring and iterating on the performance and success of the resale platform. So I think success actually looks in resale as when it is very well integrated into the whole business and not just performed by one function as would normally be sustainability, but really is the responsibility of the whole business and everyone is bought into it.
Great answer, Rory. One final question, and it's for Elyse. How does E.ON think about integrations with value chain partners?
Yeah, so digital ID, it's truly important to connect, right? That's the value that you service back to the consumers around services and downstream partners. So E.ON has launched what we call the E.ON Exchange. It's a network of partners. You can think of it as your digital ecosystem. And so we allow for, you know, quick, easy integrations with each of these partners. And we do the transformation and taxonomy against what's required for those partners, such that for a brand, your data sits here and it can easily become interoperable across the value chain that you design and elect to turn on your digital IDs.
Thank you. I know we've had over 20 questions for Elyse, Rory, and Jackie, and I'm so sorry we weren't able to get to all of them. But what we can promise you is that our team will send out answers to every question along with the recording in the next few days. So we will definitely get to your question. Thank you to our panelists for this enlightening conversation. It feels like the 30 minutes went by super quick. And thank you all for joining us today. Again, a quick reminder, I know I just mentioned it, but I'll say it again. We will be sharing the recording with you in the next few days. So do look out for it. And if you want to learn more about E.ON or Archive, you can find their contact information here. It should be on the screen.